This media is brought to you by Polyscope.
In the realm of tomorrow, where techniques mind, we ponder, we dream.
Yes.
All right.
So, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you because this is how we meet each other nowadays over Zoom. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show, and
Mm-hmm.
nice to meet you virtually. Yeah, my name is Don Gosson. I'm the co-founder CEO of a company called Nevermind. We're building the PayPal of AI. Our
PayPal of
mission
AI.
is
I love that.
Yeah, our mission is to enable AI agents to pay and get paid.
Wait a
We
minute.
feel like,
Wait a minute. You want them to earn money?
oh, oh, yes, effectively, we want them to be active economic participants.
Wow. That's really
Yeah,
interesting. Do tell. Go
yeah.
into it.
Well, look, as like cliched as this is going to sound, it's a labor of love, right? I've been on the ML machine learning side of things, now AI, my entire career, so 20 years.
No. AI came out last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I've been doing this since before it was cool. Let's put it that way.
Isn't it great
Um,
that it finally got cool? I mean, you've probably been working in obscurity all this time, and now you're thinking to yourself, finally.
it's vindicating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's self-congratulatory, I
Right.
get to pat myself on the back. Way to go,
I
Don.
was perfectly right, but at the wrong time.
Yeah, I mean, look, now it looks like we're perfectly right at the perfect time. It looks like all of this. Yeah, look, it has been an incredible journey, an interesting journey. I will say to your point, up until about 24 months ago, uh, the usual reaction was like side-eye disdain.
Exactly.
Like, who is this crazy guy and what the hell's he talking about? And why do these things need sovereignty? And
Yeah.
what are we trying? What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
What is this AI thing?
Sci-fi BS.
Crypto is the hot thing. Crypto is the hot thing. Forget about
Well, here's
AI.
the thing. I've been at this cross section, crypto and AI, for 8 years. You want to talk about doing something before it was cool. Yeah.
See, you're a futurist. You just you figured it out, but you just didn't know it was the right moment for it to happen, and now it did.
Yeah, I look,
The market met you.
I do subscribe to this, you know, the um, the belief that success is a lot about timing and luck,
Mm. Hmm.
right? And persistence.
Yep.
And I think we've demonstrated persistence and gotten to this point now where we're taking advantage of this luck, right?
Right. Exactly.
And I do have to point out, it's interesting that a couple of Canadians are sitting on a podcast on almost opposite sides of the world talking about the future.
I love it. Well, this kind of ingenuity could only come from Canada, right? Could only come from a Canadian.
I think so. I mean, look, we're naturally decentralized, right? So we have this like, I think we're preconditioned to this type of federated or decentralized technology architecture.
Yes.
And I think also, if you know about the history of Canada, like, because of such a disparate population, we have been reliant on tools
Hmm.
to help us survive for our entire existence.
Help us communicate. It's a big country
Yeah.
with a few people, all separated. There's no there's no surprise that Canada is number one into communications technology and being
Yeah.
able to get people to connect to each other. So
Yeah.
it definitely came from that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And look, and that's that, just as much as from a social standpoint as it is from an economic one, right? It's the combination of the socioeconomic drivers to
Absolutely.
enable this. Yeah.
So I'm really curious, how did you get into this? What made you decide that this was the thing you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. So like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. Studied engineering in Canada, school called University of Alberta. And then I went into commodities trading out of school. Um, I was on the risk side. So back then we called it statistical modeling.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, taking external data feeds from like TransUnion, Experian, Moody's credit scores about our
Right,
customers, and then using internal metrics to figure out, who we should lend to and who we shouldn't.
right.
With respect to trading, it was pretty boring, to
It's
be honest. It
definitely
was
machine
fun.
learning, though. It's
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely ML. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't high frequency trading, but it was still like the application of machine learning at scale within an industrialized setting, which was
Right.
interesting, right? Like coming out of school and doing that and learning the ins and outs of how to like industrialize these systems, I
Yeah.
think has really helped pave my way forward in
Hmm.
understanding the nuance of these types of systems and what's required in order to actually commercialize something.
Right.
Um, it was like it's a pretty static business when all's said and done. So, we did it for a few years and then kind of got bored. And
Well,
so
it doesn't really
parlayed
change
that.
much, right? Once
No,
you have all the data points and you got the data, the models pretty much are static, right? Unless you start changing parameters. Even that's just tweaking at the edges.
exactly. You're
Yeah.
trying to like grind out the margin
Yeah.
basically. And
Yeah.
it's it's fun until it isn't, and it's kind of you work on the puzzle, you solve the puzzle, but then you keep breaking the puzzle up and putting it back together. You know,
Does this
like
piece
yeah, I
fit
know
better
where all the
here
pieces
or
go
here?
now. Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, it was. I parlayed that into um a career in IT consulting for the better part of a decade and a half.
Nice.
And that afforded me the luxury of moving all over the world. So, moved to Los Angeles and then to Tokyo and then to London and
Wow, you're
built
like a digital
large.
nomad.
Yeah, kind of. Before that was cool. Um, yeah, and built these
You're a
large.
trailblazer, man. You're a trailblazer. I love it. Do
I
people
guess so.
understand how good, how amazing that is?
I, I mean, I think they do now. Back then, it was a bit of a rarity, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it just it I fit within this niche that was able to leverage this particular analytical skill set, and this was in broad demand, but relatively very niche.
Right.
Um, it comes out of anyway. We don't need to go into the background of this, but it comes out of like 1990 software engineering and what's required to scale
Right.
these early like internet systems, and
Right.
then building those out for companies that really didn't have much clue.
Right.
So did that for some of the, build large scale data estates for some of the biggest companies on the planet to implement machine learning capabilities. So worked at HSBC and L'Oreal and AXA and Mizuho. And so,
Nice.
just continued to develop the skill set and understanding and get broad exposure to a bunch of different verticals, which has helped inform, I think not only the technical requirements for scaling analytical solutions, but also sort of a broad exposure to the mindset across different industries and
Mm.
how to tackle those verticals. Um, so yeah, and then 2016, I caught the crypto bug.
Uh-oh.
Um, and
Let me guess.
I,
How many Bitcoins you got? 100, 1,000?
well, not that many, but yeah. I've been in it
It's like, why are you
relatively
talking to
early.
me if you have 100 bitcoins? Go away.
Well, because this stuff is interesting. What I'm working on now is like it's more interesting than just buying a commodity and sitting on it.
Yeah, I know. I'm
If
kidding.
um, but yeah, so it was. So I got into this. What attracted me was less sort of this like decentralized financial and economic driver,
Hmm.
and more the analytics driver, where blockchain is just a really elegant solution to provenance integrity,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So within a large analytical system, understanding where your models are coming from, where your data is coming from, where they're going to, how they're being used, who's creating them, right? All of these different components that get amalgamated into an analytical solution um, to create, an industry, you would call it an actionable insight. In the AI space, you call it an inference,
Mm.
right? And so leveraging this technology to create that underpinning for strong provenance integrity and resulting fine grain attribution. And yeah, I jumped into the entrepreneurial game in 2017. I co-founded a project that was one of the first that tried to blend um, AI with Web3,
Hmm.
and have just been doing this ever since.
But what is
Um,
it? What is it? The spark that made you decide to go down this path, like give autonomous AI agents the ability to buy and sell or pay
yeah.
and make.
So it comes out. It's a long transition, right? And it's this extended sort of period of learning,
Mhm.
experimenting, failing, and then refactoring and continuing the process and just persevering,
So
quite
pivoting,
frankly.
basically, lots of pivoting.
Yeah, lots of pivoting, shameless pivoting. Um, but where we got to, right, was like, so coming out of this historical reference that I have, industrializing these machine learning land ecosystems, um, you know, provenance integrity attribution being like sort of mission critical to the success of those. Basically, you sit in a meeting and you say, here is the inference or here is the actionable insight I came up with, and that gets shot down and negated if there's somebody else in the meeting that can question the integrity of that solution. Where did this information, how did you draw that conclusion, right?
Right.
So being able to basically say it definitively came from here, here's the analysis, yada, 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 basically underpins the success or failure of your
Yeah, because you're talking about transparency,
AI.
right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's 100% about the transparency of this workflow or an analytical pipeline.
Right.
And what we recognize is that, in order to get to a stage where this can be industrialized and in a decentralized capacity where you could like reward all of the different contributions, what we actually need to get to is um, effectively um, manifesting the value that's created in that end state, in that inference, right? And capturing that value. And then once you've captured that value, if this particular use case requires it, being able to transmit that value back upstream in the form of like royalties or residuals or rewards or whatever you
Hmm.
want to call them, payments effectively. So it
Right.
became abundantly clear that actually you need to start with the last mile and capture that value creation at the end state, the payment piece between the provider of that inference and the requester of that inference.
Right.
And yeah, so about 24 months ago, just kind of fell into a hyper focus on payments. And this also, came about during the initial sort of explosion on the AI side, which started with the diffusion models. These were like the Gen AI art models that came out from like Stability AI,
Yep.
et cetera. And then there was this catalytical, like the catalyst in all of this was OpenAI releasing ChatGPT and
Yep.
GPT-3 that had like a very nice, efficient, sexy interface
Hmm.
effectively.
Very
And
human interface. That's what I liked about it. It appealed to
yeah,
everyone.
exactly. Well, it made it accessible to everyone
Yes,
because, GPT-3 had been around before that, right? Um, but it was a bunch of nerds like me and others that could use it and not many others,
exactly.
right?
Only the nerds who were in there.
So, it took a lot of effort to leverage this stuff. And these solutions basically catalyze the understanding of the capability that was now available, and everybody dogpiled in. And I think really what this catalyzed was the interest, but it was an interest from the right demographic, right?
Right.
Engineers, computer scientists, product owners that existed outside of this space that always questioned the efficacy and applicability of AI now could understand the benefits of doing this. And so you've kind of had this mind shift from looking at it, artificial intelligence as sort of a research driven domain
Hmm.
into one that's like a commercializable domain.
Right.
Right? We can build industries on this
Right.
now.
So can you give me an
Th-
example? Can you give me an example of how it would work in practice? Because I mean, I understand conceptually, but how would it work in practice? I mean, I'm trying to figure out where this would be used.
yeah. So for us, what we're focused on specifically is AI to AI payments, right? Silicon based agent to silicon based agent payments. And our belief is that what we're witnessing now is the rise of a new consumer that's going to
Hmm.
manifest as trillions of AI agents. So
Absolutely.
we're
Absolutely. We need this agent AI agent between us and the world to be able
right.
to make our transactions on our behalf. Go on.
Exactly. So bear with me because this is going to be. We'll get to this end state where you're asking like, how is this actually applicable?
Right.
But I'm going to start with like a little bit of theory and like the technical implications of how these agents operate. Um, so what we recognized was that these services are going to get commoditized over
Hmm.
time, right?
Yep.
And by virtue of that, the agents, which are the amalgamation of these services. So if you think of what's an AI service, well, very simply, it's a model, right?
Hmm.
GPT-3, but also
Yep.
GPT 3.5, GPT-4, right?
Yeah.
Workflow management, all of this stuff that gets encapsulated into this single unit of value creation, which is an AI agent, right? And so you and I, we can work with any third party agent, but we can have as users like completely divergent orthogonal requests to this
Right.
agent, right?
Hmm.
And that agent has the capability to respond and provide likely a very cogent, relevant response to you and I, right? This wasn't really a possibility in the past. You had like very constrained systems where the parameters had to be similar between user bases, right? So, a
Oh yeah, it
platform,
was
I've
very
got to
limited in what
submit.
it could do. Now it can pretty much
Exactly.
do anything.
Now it's
Yeah.
super flexible, right?
Yeah.
And it's this inherent flexibility, right? That requires a different way of thinking about the payments and the settlement function and understanding what the agent is actually doing, right? So you and I, we leverage this third party agent. We have our, orthogonal requests. I'm a simple user. You're a power user. I submit my simple request to this agent. The agent's backend decomposes my request and then routes my request to the model that will sufficiently answer my question, right?
Hmm.
So let's say this agent pulls, sources inference just from OpenAI and the GPT series of models. So simple request, decompose, gets routed to GPT-3. I get my response, right? My inference. You, on the other hand, you're a power user. You submit a multimodal request. That has to be routed to a model that can handle the multimodality.
Right.
So
Or multiple
GPT-4.
models, or just a
Yeah,
single model.
or decomposed into multiple, but this is exactly like the kind of nuance that we're talking about.
Right.
In the very simplistic scenario, it's just, sledgehammering into one model or another model.
Yep.
The thing that needs to be taken into account is that the cost of providing an inference with GPT-4 versus GPT-3 between one simple model versus a complex model can be like the spread in cost differentiation can be an order of magnitude or more
Right.
in difference,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Why would you use a
And
sophisticated model for simple query? Makes no sense.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what we realized was that sort of OpEx scenario, this operational expenditure when you're running these solutions, these agents, um, existing payment systems are too static in nature, right?
Mm.
Stripe is set up to sell T-shirts on the internet.
Yeah.
So it's a SKU based model by and large.
Right.
If you know Stripe, you go into the platform and you register your SKUs, your product codes, and then you set a fixed price, right? So when somebody
Mm-hmm.
goes to a website and they want to buy a small T-shirt from you, that small T-shirt is there, and the price is $10, and it doesn't change from one day to the next
Yeah.
or
It's not
one
like you
month to
can,
the next.
but you can. I mean, you can conceivably have some type of revenue management software on the back end that changes it based on all sorts of
But this
parameters.
is where the complexity lies, is
Right.
in that ability to reset the price, right? This is what we built. System of unit accounting that takes the metered cost of these agents. It looks at the underlying services that are invoked against any response and translates that metered cost into a settlement cost with the user. For those of your listeners that are like kind of deep down the rabbit hole of on the AI side, it's basically translating AI observability with an accounting component
Hmm.
into a bill of sale, effectively.
So how would
So
this,
that's what we built.
so how would it
So
instantiate? Would be like I make a query and it would say, hey, this query, it calculates the value of the query before it makes the query, or does it charge
Yeah,
me, or?
so yeah. So there's like, if you think about OpenAI again, right, and you've used ChatGPT, like you can get pre-operational insight into like how many tokens are going into this query, right, into this request, and potentially how many tokens are going to come out, right? But
Right.
really, what we're instantiating is the mechanism to manage tokens in, tokens out, combine those two, 4x that, create this like exchange, and settle with your user. So take
So
tokens and translate that into, dollars and cents
so
effectively.
who's your target market for your product then? Is it
So
the
right,
AI providers, or?
yeah, right now it's those like multi-agent system builders.
Hmm.
So, you're thinking about like the agent ops agencies, the crew AIs in the Web 2 space, the OLASs, the NAPTHAs, the virtuals in the Web 3 space.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Working with them and enabling these agents to basically, in a very articulate manner, specify how much usage went into creating this response based on the inbound request from this other silicon-based agent that made that request. And so here's where we get into where are we seeing this, right? So what we're seeing right now is the conversion of this productive effort, primarily in like the knowledge work and entertainment space. So content generation, as it relates to just sort of like memes,
Hmm.
right? Like stick an agent on Twitter and be able to interact with it, and it says
Right.
funny stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's like the
I don't know.
simpleton
Every agent
version.
I've seen on Twitter does not say anything funny. And sometimes it's like, oh, I couldn't parse that request. That's a tweet. I'm like, what the hell?
You gotta get into the crypto AI Twitter with like, Gotius Maximus, and there are some pretty obscene
Oh, that's
agents out there at the moment.
That
Um,
place is insane, man. I
yeah.
saw the edges of it, and I'm like, do I really want to jump into this? I don't know.
It's like Agent 4chan. But
Hey,
it's
sometimes
a
4chan
very
knows things before anybody else. They're like prescient over
look,
there.
yeah, if you want to know what's happening on the like in the underbelly of the internet, go, hang out in the underbelly.
Yeah,
But it's so you've got this like very provocative realm that's manifesting from an entertainment point of view, but then you also have like this more productive side of things still on like the content generation side, but as it relates to like SRE and like in particular like sales relationship
yeah. But that sounds so boring.
components.
Can't you make more money on the provocative
Well,
side?
it's boring, but you have to think about like
VCs and
it's
investors and
no. The cost displacement
right.
that organizations like Klarna.
Mm,
I don't know if you've been following that, but like their call
yes.
center, they basically annihilated it. They just
Yeah.
nuked
And
it.
it probably works better than ever.
Yeah. This is the type of like offloading from our brains into the synthetic brains that's
Right.
actively going on right now. And so what we have kind of a finger on is like you've got agents that are sort of best of breed for a particular business application over here that do like campaign generation and like cold email campaign type um, capabilities. And then you've also got, I don't know if you've tried these tools, but there are some emergent technologies. For example, 11x, they have this agent that will call you. This isn't a plug, a shameless plug, but like it used to be called Jordan. It's now called Mike. I think they renamed him. So
So Mike can call me, and what will
you
what
provide a
will Mike?
phone number and an email, and it will go out and rag, like it'll scrape information from your LinkedIn and like a bunch of public domains. And
I
in
love it.
about like less than a minute, you get a call, and this agent starts to have a very relevant conversation with you. And
I know half
if
half
you,
my audience is going, "Holy crap, that's scary," and the other half is going, "Yes, yes, yes."
it's whatever side you're on, accelerationist or doomer, um, you have to recognize how novel and I think like relatively crazy this is.
That is insane. I
Growing
love it.
up, like it's a bit latent, but you should try it, and your listeners should try it. And so we're looking at this scenario where you could take a best of breed campaign generating agent that's going to create this campaign for you in the email. And then as inbounds start to reply from that value generating cycle, phone numbers are procured, and you have this second wave of introduction through entirely synthetic workforce,
Wow, I love it.
right? And then you start to think about the coordination of these functions and being able to take a best of breed agent from one vendor that does this sort of campaign generation and works with another vendor's cold calling agent, or that extends out this campaign functionality where you don't have to have like a traditional contract between organizations. You can just have one agent call and pay. So the campaign generation agent creates email campaigns. As these emails start coming in from your potential prospects, phone numbers captured, list fired over to phone number, like phone calling agent, campaign generation agent pays phone calling agent to perform that work based
Wow.
on the number of calls, the length of the conversation, right? That metric of how much, compute was
Yeah.
used,
Yeah.
how much, orchestration was performed. And
I
so
love
you
it.
get down to this, fine-grained mechanism for measuring the productive output of each of these agents and setting up the protocol so that they can understand who else is out there that I can work with and negotiate the fees amongst themselves.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now this tells me, so let's time to think like a futurist. It's the year 2035. You're telling me that we won't need humans anymore. Because
Yeah.
these agents in 10 years, I mean, if we're doing this today, you're gonna have these one-person organizations who are going to be able to act like 10,000 person organizations with all these autonomous agents doing things on their behalf.
Yep.
So at the same time, you can have these large organizations going, well, why do we need to have these many people on staff when we have all this stuff going on? Are you like causing some kind of destruction of the human workforce in
No,
this?
I don't think so. I think what we're doing is mitigating our exposure to dog shit work. That nobody grows up and says, "Hey, you get called on in class. What do you want to be when you grow up?" I want to be a call center operator.
I know it's not really a big ambition for a lot of people, right?
No, it's something that sort of people fall back on, for a number of different reasons, but the primary one being demand and price
Yeah.
point.
No, I
right?
agree with you. I mean, I think that there's a lot of human beings being wasted in roles that do not. I mean, they're not big enough for a human being. They're just little tiny pieces of what a human being could do. Give it to a machine. A machine should be doing that, and the human should be doing better work than that. Something more interesting.
I subscribe. Like I fundamentally believe in our ability to evolve and respond, in a productive manner to external influences, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not worried about our long-term trajectory. And if you look historically, like this, I think is going to be another massive unlock for humanity. That's going to be able to decouple, this ourselves from this productive labor that's entirely mundane,
Right.
and like free us from those shackles so we can continue to explore the capabilities of the human mind and evolve further, right? Historically speaking, like you have these sort of catalytical points in time where, like, sure, we evolve slowly, but then there are points in time where it's just like explosions
Right.
of capabilities.
Yeah.
And those explosions couple with other explosions, right? Because all of a sudden, like the steam engine increases our overall productivity so we can like move out of the field and into an industrial setting, and more people can just sit around and think and pontificate, and
Yeah. And
you get
do
these periods of
podcasts and become
renaissance.
influencers and
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, my conviction is that this is going to enable like an increase in human creativity
mm.
and just fundamentally push us forward in an accelerated rate for this period of renaissance that we're entering.
So do you think we're going to be, I mean, we're already into it right now, but where do you think we'll be in 10 years? How far along?
Oh, I think at this point, like, we'll be in the stage of entire industries that are, basically run by these agentic AIs, plus probably like humanoid robotics.
Like DAOs, basically?
Yeah, and probably getting, if not there yet, getting close to like a cybernetic type landscape. I think we'll be witnessing the early-ish state, like it'll have already manifested, but like net new industry, things that like we just can't contemplate at this point. And I also think that the way that this will all manifest and expose itself, there's going to be I believe that that the GDP of humans is going to pale in comparison to that of AIs in the future.
Right.
And then a lot of that economic activity that they're taking part in and creating, we'll just be largely ambivalent to it, and we'll have like these hooks into it and out of it.
Yeah. Well, I firmly believe we're going to get to a point where you've got agentic AI doing most of the work, but then sort of handing stuff off to us when it needs our help, right? So if it needs some assistance in some specific space, then you might get an email or a task pop up saying, "Hey, can you help me out with this quick task?" And then you get paid for the quick task based on the work you did, because it just sort of brings you as a human into the work stream, and you get paid along with everything else. But then the AI does whatever it can do. So yeah. So there's like a dispatcher in the sky that says, "You do this, you do this, you do this."
Yeah. I think it'll be a very symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is cool, man. I want to live in that world.
I do too. I mean, that's why I'm, trying to build it. And I like I said, I think we unlock capabilities that, are sort of latent currently for us.
Yeah.
Because it'll give us that freedom, right?
Fantastic. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
I think probably jump into our Discord. So if you head over to our website, nevermind.io, nevermind.io. You can link to us on our Discord, follow us on Twitter. That's at nevermind_io. So NEVERMINED_IO, on X. We're, things are picking up, and if you're interested in this space, we'd be happy to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, I'll put the links in the show notes so people can go directly there. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.